Hello everyone and welcome back to the mock test series for the IEC 62443 Cybersecurity Fundamentals Specialist certification. In this video, we will continue with the mock test 2 featuring a new set of practice questions to help you prepare for the certification exam. So just like in the previous video, that is mock test 1, these are not the actual exam questions, but they are carefully designed based on my experience and also IC 32 knowledge check. So what you can expect in this video is a fresh set of multiple choice questions to test your knowledge and explanation for each answer to help you understand the reasoning. And as always, if you find this content helpful, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated on the next videos in this series. So let's dive into the first question of this series. So the question number 11. One of the most significant trends in the industrial control system cybersecurity is the increased use of commercially off the shelf COTS, COTS technologies, and IP based communication protocols. So, what is the primary risk introduced by this trend? So, your options are enhanced performance of the industrial systems due to better hardware and software. Second option is higher levels of system isolation because of improved proprietary solutions. Increased exposure to vulnerabilities and cyber threat to common in IT environments, simplified integration of system with no cybersecurity impact. So carefully read the questions, I mean the choices and select your answer. So the answer is increased exposure to vulnerabilities and cyber threats common in IT environments. The reason is the use of COTS and IP based protocols. It will expose the ICS to the same cybersecurity risk as in the IT systems, including your malicious software, hacking, and unauthorized access, as they are not inherently secure. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Question number 12. In the context of industrial protocols like Ethernet over IP, what is the primary role of the common industrial protocol? In short, it is CIP. Your choices are to define physical connectivity standards for Ethernet devices, to provide a universal protocol for automation control and information, to offer a replacement for legacy serial protocols like RS-485, or to secure communication between devices using advanced encryption techniques. So you can just think of it. What is the right answer? So the correct answer is to provide a universal protocol for automation control and information, because you know CIP, that is common industrial protocol, actually it is designed to support your industrial automation needs by enabling the real time control and data exchange over networks like Ethernet over IP. So the question number 13. Defense in depth is a core concept in 62443 standard. Which of the following is the most accurate example of implementing defense in depth in an IACS environment? Installing a single robust firewall to protect the entire network, using multiple security layers including firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and physical access controls, segregating IT and OT networks and managing them independently, and relying solely on secure industrial protocols like OPC UA. So which option is correct? So here is the highlighted word is defense in depth. So just think over it. What is defense in depth? So the right answer is multiple security layers. So defense in depth is a strategy that implements your multiple layers of security controls. Like idea is that if one layer of defense fails, at least additional layers are in place to mitigate the further impact or consequence. So the your option B is correct. So it describes the layered approach that includes various security measures like firewalls, IDS, and physical access controls. Unlike others, where here only one firewall, and here we are talking about independent, segregating IT, and only relying on one of the in the secure industrial protocols. So the option B is the right answer. Question number 14. When performing a security risk assessment as per 62443, which of the following factor is least relevant in determining the security requirements for a system? So the question here is least relevant. The likelihood of an attack exploiting a vulnerability, the safety impact of a cyber incident on personnel and equipment, and the cost of the security technologies being implemented, the operational criticality of the system being assessed. So, which is the right answer? So, the key term here is the least relevant. So, definitely the answer is the cost of cybersecurity technologies being implemented, because the primary goal is to ensure safety, reliability, and operational continuity. Maybe cost is also a practical consideration, but it is not a determining factor for defining the security requirements. The other options like likelihood, yes, definitely, and then safety impact, because assessing potential impact on a personal and equipment ensure that security measure addresses both operational and safety risks. And finally, the criticality, yes, because it dictates the uh, what are the level of protection required, right? So the correct answer is the cost of cybersecurity technologies being implemented. Question number 15. ISA 62443 emphasizes the concept of zones and conduits for securing IACS. Which of the following best describes a conduit? A physical communication cable connecting two zones. A logical grouping of devices that share similar security requirements. A secured communication path between zones with different security levels. A layer of encryption applied to secure IACS data. So, conduit, we are talking about conduit. So zone means it's a logical grouping of IACS assets that share similar security requirements. But conduit, whereas it's a communication path that manage and protect the flow of data between these zones. So the right answer is secured communication path between zones with different security levels. But why not A? This physical communication cable connecting two zones. Yes, this is also conduit, but it is not only limited to that, because whether physical or virtual, so the conduit here, what best describes a conduit, so we have to consider a generic case. So here specific to physical communication, and there is also a virtual, right, logical grouping of devices that share similar security requirements, right? So it's a combination of both. This is also a part of conduit's implementation, but this is not limited to encryption. It includes all measure necessary to secure the communication path, like firewalls or intrusion detection system and everything. Hence, uh, so generic term, a secured communication path between zones with different security levels. Question number 16. Which of the following is a potential drawback of using IDS in an industrial environment? So IDS systems are unable to detect unauthorized access attempts. IDS systems require frequent updates, making them impractical for IACS. IDS systems are only effective against non-known vulnerabilities and may not detect zero-day attacks. IDS systems cause significant latency in real-time industrial operations. So, question is potential drawback. So you can see which or which of these are drawback, potential drawback of IDS. So the answer is IDS systems are only effective against known vulnerabilities. That means IDS systems typically detect attacks by comparing the network traffic or a database of known attack signatures, right? And zero a day attack means, since these IDS depends on predefined signature, they may fail to identify any zero-day attacks for which no signature exists. And so the first option is you can rule out straight away, because IDS specifically designed to detect these unauthorized access. While IDS system may require these frequent updates, but this is not a significant drawback. And the third one is, yes, I mean IDS system typically operate passively by monitoring traffic without any interfering with the data flows. So therefore they do not introduce any latency in real time operation. So hence the answer is it's effective against known vulnerability and may not detect the 0-day attacks. Question number 17. Why is patch management in IACS environments more complex compared to IT environments? So options are: patches in IACS require real-time encryption during installation. Testing and validation are essential due to potential impact on operations and safety. Vendors typically do not release patches for industrial software. IA systems are air-gapped, making patching unnecessary. So you can see, the major difference between OT and IT with respect to patch management. So the moment you hear about operations and safety, that will be your answer. Why? Because unlike in IT, here the operational impact because of the patching, it can result in the production losses or maybe safety hazards or even some catastrophic events. And testing requirements are like patches must be thoroughly tested, and also it should be validated in the controlled environment, or if you have some labs, so it has to be tested first before deploying, so that you will not have any interference with the system functionality or reliability or even safety, right? And why this? There is some myth. ISS systems are air gapped, making patching unnecessary. Yeah, this is also incorrect because while maybe some of the IACS systems are air gapped, but many are connected to networks for monitoring and management purposes, right? So those situations are vulnerable for the cyber threats. Even air gapping alone does not eliminate any need for patching, especially for system interacting with external networks. So the right answer is B. Question number 18. What is a security level in a 62443 standard? The probability of an attack occurring, a numerical indicator of the robustness of the security controls, the number of users authorized to access the system, a classification of the physical safety of IACS devices. So you might have heard about SL1, 2, 3, 4 in 62443 standards. So what are those? It's a numerical indicator of the robustness of the security controls. Why it is not probability of the attack occurring? Because it's a likelihood of an attack. It's not a you know i- security controls. And number of users authorized to access the system. This is not related to the they focus on the effectiveness of the security control. And classification of the physical safety, that is addressed separately in the safety standards. So next question: what is the primary purpose of using a risk matrix in an IACS security assessment? To assign a specific roles and responsibility to stakeholders, to quantify financial losses due to cybersecurity incidents, to map the likelihood of threats against their potential consequences, to calculate the exact cost of implementing security controls. So, what is the risk formula? If you remember, then definitely you will have the answer. To map the likelihood of threats against their potential consequences. We know that risk matrix is widely used tool in both IT and OT. Its primary purpose is to provide a visual representation, by plotting your likelihood of threats, occurring against their potential consequences. So likelihood is nothing but, it assesses how probable a threat is based on your vulnerability and potential attack vectors. And consequence, evaluates the impact of a threat if it were to, exploit the vulnerabilities. So why not others? Like to assign specific roles and responsibility, it is more of a GRC framework, correct? Governance and risk and compliance. And the to quantify financial losses, yes, this also considered as part of the consequence, but the matrix does not specifically quantify them. It provides a relative risk categorization basically. The last option is a risk matrix identifies and prioritizes risk but does not calculate the cost of the security controls, and this cost analysis uh, will be considered as part of a risk treatment or mitigation planning phase. What makes Modbus TCP particularly vulnerable in industrial environments? It encrypts all data, making it hard to troubleshoot. It lacks authentication and encryption mechanism. It operates only on proprietary device. It requires complex configuration that are error prone. So as you all know that Modbus TCP, it encrypts all data? No, obviously. It operates only on proprietary devices? No, because Modbus is widely used because of its nature. It's an open protocol. Any vendor can use it. It requires complex configuration? No, it is made it available for the simple configuration. And it lacks the authentication and encryption mechanisms? Yes, that is the right answer. Question number 21. What is the primary difference between IT security and IACS security? IT security prioritizes integrity over confidentiality. IACS security focuses on availability and integrity rather than confidentiality. IT security requires higher levels of redundancy compared to IACS. There is no difference, both follow the same security principle. If you remember the IT OT differences in terms of their goals and the data triad, then you will easily answer this. So ISAS security focuses on availability, integrity rather than confidentiality. Even though confidentiality is also important, but the priority differs because that's the uh, primary difference, right? IT security usually prioritize confidentiality by followed by integrity and availability. If you remember CIA triad. And ISCS, prioritize availability, integrity over confidentiality because of its nature. Because if we, because of its critical nature, right? And security higher levels of redundancy, but usually ISCS equipments should be in redundancy or backup mechanism compared to IT because of its critical nature. And there is no difference. No, I mean on security principles could be same when we compare, but overall if you see take the prioritization, they are not same. So the answer is ISCS security focuses on availability and integrity rather than confidentiality. Question number 22. Which of the following best describes the role of 62444-1? If you remember if you remember the entire series, then you can easily answer. It defines a FR, foundational security requirement for the entire systems. It establishes secure development lifecycle requirements for product suppliers. It provides detailed risk assessment methodologies for asset owners. It specifies the requirement for secure zone design in industrial networks. I would like to show you this standard, then you can easily. So one hint is, if you remember this entire series of the standards, easily you can answer four questions. You can easily expect. So here they are talking about product development life cycle, right? So 4-1. So the right answer is secure development life cycle for the product suppliers. So this is part of 3-2. This also 3-2, and this is 2-1 also sometimes it defines, and 3-3 foundational requirements covered under 3-3. Question number 23. Which of the following statements about the development and implement phase in the IACS life cycle is true? This phase focuses solely on patch deployment for vulnerabilities. Security policies are defined but no technical measures are implemented. Countermeasures or cybersecurity specifications are established and deployed. This phase is responsible for evaluating the results of cybersecurity audits. So straight away you can eliminate two answers. So one is no technical measures are implemented, and the third one is cybersecurity audit. It is part of maintenance. So you are stuck with another two. So that is A and C. So the answer is countermeasure and cybersecurity specifications are established and deployed. I would like to show you one more image. So this is from the ISC training. You will get it. So there are three phases identified: assess phase, development implement phase, and maintain phase. And in the assess, we are doing conducting the risk assessment and the zones and conduits we will do. And then the development implement phase. So basically we do all kind of implementation, taking input from assess phase. And finally, we will be maintaining audit, incident response and recovery. If you remember this whole chart and also this, I am telling you this, some of the questions will be repetitive for most of the IC 30 series, like 32, 33, 34, 37 sometime, because this is very important slide. So you can easily, remember this, the flow. I guess maybe some 2 to 3 questions you can expect from this. Sometimes it is trickier or sometimes pretty straightforward. If you understand it correctly, you can easily answer. Question number 24. Which of the following is a key difference between 624433-2 and 4-1? As I said, if you remember that entire series chart, then you can easily answer. So 3-2 focuses on component level security and 4-1 focuses on organizational process. 3-2 addresses risk assessment, 4-1 addresses security development life cycle requirements. 3-2 is a guideline for patch management, and while 4-1 focus on industrial protocol security. 3-2 applies only to asset owners, 4-1 applies to integrators. So if you remember that, you can easily answer. That is 3-2 is the risk assessment, 4-1 is SDLC process. So the right answer is B. Question number 25. What is the primary reason OPC Classic is challenging to secure in an IACS environment? It uses proprietary protocols that are difficult to monitor. It requires encryption keys that are incompatible with firewalls. It relies on DCOM, which dynamically assigns ports across a wide range. It does not support real-time communication. So the right answer is DCOM, because OPC relies on Microsoft DCOM technology, which can dynamically allocate port between your 1024 and 65535. This makes it very difficult to firewall effectively, increasing its security challenges. That's why nowadays we can see OPC UA in most of the projects. Question number 26. Why is periodic cybersecurity auditing is critical during the maintain phase of the CSMS lifecycle? To replace the outdated ISCS components with newer hardware, to identify address the changes in laws, regulation, and operational requirements, to ensure that physical security policies are updated, to reduce the frequency of risk assessment conducted by the organization. So, what is the right answer? Option A, to replace outdated ISCS components. Yes, definitely it is part of maintain phase, but it is not the primary goal, or which is not only critical. And then to ensure the physical security policies are updated. So it's not only limited to physical security. And frequency of risk assessment will be reduced. No, it is ongoing treatment. So definitely the answer is to identify the address changes in laws, regulations, and operational requirements. What is the primary goal of 2-3 standard, which focuses on patch management? To eliminate the vulnerabilities in industrial protocols, to define the process of evaluating, testing, and deploying patches in an IACS environment, to automate patch deployment across all zones and conduits, to ensure patches are applied without downtime. Yes. So you can see straight away you can eliminate two answers. One is eliminate vulnerabilities in all industrial protocols, because it's not only limited to industrial protocols, and to automate patch management deployment across all zones and conduits, because usually we don't automate the patch deployment in industrial environment, and to ensure patches are applied without downtime. Yes, this is correct, but what is the primary goal? That means it's the entire process, that is evaluating, testing, and deploying patches in an IICS environment. Yes. So this is the right answer. If you know this series, then you can easily answer. Okay. Question number 28. What is the correct interpretation of capability security levels SLC in 62443? The target level of risk reduction required for a specific zone, the level of cybersecurity achieved by a component or system when properly configured, the minimum acceptable security baseline for IACS assets, the difference between target security levels and current implementation. So you have to be very careful in remembering this. So there are two security levels what we have defined, like SL1234, that is a quantifiable, and how the security controls are. Here is the SLA, SLT, SLC. SLA is achieved, SLC is capability, and SLT we have discussed in the previous mock test, that is target security level. So what is capability? So the level of cyber security achieved by a component or system when properly configured. So that is the right answer. So you can expect some kind of questions like this in your exam, maybe three questions. Which of the following is the primary purpose of foundational requirement FRs in 62443 standard? To define the technical security controls for IACS components, to establish safety guideline for industrial facility, to create universal security policy for all industries, to provide a framework identifying and mitigating vulnerabilities. So you can easily answer if you know some of the topics in 62443: foundational requirements, system requirements, components requirements, security levels like SL1234, SLA, SLC, SLT, so like that. So it's a defined technical security control for IACS components, right? A system must implement to ensure security operations. So this is the right answer. So last question in this series, in the context of 62443, which of the following scenarios correctly applies the concept of zones and conduits for securing an IACS? A manufacturing plant creates a single zone that includes all assets, relying on a strong perimeter firewall to prevent unauthorized access. The facility groups assets with similar security requirement into zones, conduits, secure communications between zones using conduits with firewall and IDS. A power plant uses conduits directly connect all IACS components to enterprise network, allowing efficient real-time data exchange. Zones are created only for IT system, while conduits are exclusively for OT systems. So maybe concept of zones conduit. So you have to think in all angles which suits the definition of this or applies the zones and conduits. So the right answer is similar security requirement to zones and secure communication between zones using conduits. So let us understand why not A. Here we are talking about single zones, right? So it violates your principle of segmentation, which zone is basically we have to do it for that reason, right? Why C is not correct? Because it's directly connecting IACS component to the enterprise network. So without any security controls or in the conduit. And definitely third one is incorrect because zones and conduits apply for both IT and OT systems. So hence you have to think in every angle that what is exactly zones and conduits. So we have come to an end of mock test 2 series. Uh, so we have covered almost 20 questions in this video. Uh, and I'll be continuing with the next set of questions in the next video, that is mock test 3. So make sure you stay tuned for more practice questions, explanation and insights so that you can start preparing on your own. So now you might have got an idea how to create your own set of questions based on the slides. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to support the channel and stay updated on the new videos. Thank you.